Gauranga Gana Gocha Goloruharam Gauranga Gudatama Gopyada Kopa Vriksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshikavadam Satatam Namami Uttama Adama Kichuna Bachila Janchiya Dile Kakola Kahe Premananda Imona Gauranga Hridaya Dariya Bola Bhaja Gauranga Kaha Gauranga Laha Gaurangira Namare Jai Jana Gauranga Bhaje Se Hoyamara Prana Re Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yashaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya Prema-bhakti-candrika Padama Pumata Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madgavirapi Gopala Srikariyat Kripaya Jadi Tadaiva Sambhaya Pitva Risha Yustat Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunatha Brajabala Vapahima Panchakalpatarubhishcha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We can recite together. Shri Krishna Nama Amrita Varshi Vaktra Chandra Prabhadvasta Tamo Bharaya Gauranga Deva Anucharaya Tasmai Namo Nama Shri Narottamaya. Again and again I offer my obeisances unto Srila Narottam Das Thakur. He is a true follower of Lord Gauranga Dev, the nectarian shower of the holy name of Krishna, radiating from the moon of his mouth, destroys the darkness of ignorance. So we're on the 16th verse now of Prema-bhakti-candrika, the second section. Let's look back a little bit at our previous session. Apane palabe sabha suniya Govinda nam, Govinda Rabba, Singha Rabbe Jaina Kori Gana, Sakale Vipate Jabi Mahananda Shukapabe Jarahoy Ekanta Bhajana. So Narottam Das Thakur in a previous verse was speaking about the enemies that we have in bhakti, and that just by hearing the sound of Krishna's name, they all go away. There's no difficulty at all. That was, I think, 2 sessions ago. And no, it was in our last session. And we spoke something about fear and how fear comes from duality, bhayam dutya benivesata shat. When we see something separate from Krishna, and how Srila Prabhupada in Bhagavad Gita he says very straightforwardly, he says that without being fearless, one can't be joyful, and devotees are always fearless and always joyful. And he says that in order to make spiritual progress, we have to become fearless. So today, we're in the 14th verse. Did I say 16th before? We're in the 14th verse. And very interesting subject matter. It's still cutting weeds. I'm sorry, we haven't planted seeds yet or gotten fruits or anything like that. But a very nice verse. Nakoriha asachesta labha puja pratishta sadachinta govinda charan sakale vipati jabi mahananda sukapavi Prema-bhakti-candrika. So he's praying to his mind. My dear mind, please, nakoriha asachesta. Don't run after these things which are asachesta, which are just useless endeavors. Which are of three primary types: labha, puja, and pratishta, or adoration, profit, adoration, distinction. Prabhupada generally translates. Sadachinta Govinda Charan. Always think of the lotus feet of Govinda. Shakale vipate jabi mahananda shukapabe Prema-bhakti-candrika. He said, just please, Shakale vipate jabi. If you take shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, and Shakale vipate jabi, all the different problems, they'll go away. And Mahananda Shukapabe, you'll be in ecstasy, Prema-bhakti-candrika, and you'll attain the topmost platform of bhakti. Another meaning is that if you practice bhakti in this way, then all these other things will come automatically. So this is a very important point. My Guru Maharaj, sometimes in class, I remember once in Los Angeles, I think it was, he said that to us that when you came here, you were very nice. When you came to Krishna consciousness, you just wanted bhakti. You just wanted to know Krishna. But now after some years, you've forgotten why you came. And now you're more concerned about a position. You want to be temple president. You want to be a sannyasi. You want to be a guru. And everything becomes spoiled. Srila Prabhupada speaks about this in his Viraha Astakam, which he wrote to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. I wanted to find a Bengali for this. I'm quite sure of some of the things that he says in the Bengali. But all I have is an English translation done by Dasra Sutta Prabhu. He said that if there's only one Supreme Lord, then a true sadhu, if his faith increases, gives up the desire for profit, adoration, and distinction in the material world. This has got to be love, puja, and pratishta. And he says, if our faith increases, then we're able to give this thing up. Again, in Nectar Devotion, Srila Prabhupada says that anyone who has any desire or aspiration for satisfying his senses by becoming more and more important, either in the material sense or in the spiritual sense, cannot actually relish the really sweet taste of devotional service. So Narottam Das Thakur is telling us the same thing in this verse today, that Mahananda Shukapabe, if you want to enjoy this great ecstasy, this great happiness, and always be happy, then Nakoriya Asachesha Labha Puja Pratishta. You should give up this love, puja, and pratishta, this desire for these things. These three things are great poison. They're spoken about in many different places by our acharyas in Hari Bhakti Vilas, by Raghunath Das Goswami in the beginning of his Braj Leela Stava, and also in his Manasiksha, I think it's in text number 7, in many, many different places. So it's a very, very important discussion. We should be very careful and avoid this pratishta. In Hari Bhakti Vilas, Sanatana Goswami is given so many different instructions, and as we sometimes comment in Hari Bhakti Vilas, it's a little difficult to understand the book. because it's not all about bhakti. It's not all about bhakti, but Sudha bhakti. As Sanatana Goswami and Gopal Bhatta Goswami describe in Hari Bhakti Vilas, sometimes they're writing for people who desire some material position. And sometimes they're a position or sense gratification. Sometimes they're writing for people who are afraid. And sometimes they're writing for bhakti. And for example, he says this one in his description on Janmashtami. And I wrote some article about this some years ago, and he gives one verse glorifying pure bhakti. And then he gives like 100 verses speaking about how if you even think about drinking water on Janmashtami, the Yamadutas are going to take you to the darkest, deepest hell, and you're going to be tortured there forever and ever. And it's a terrible. And then there's so many verses, another 100 or so verses, maybe a few hundred, speaking about if you follow Janmashtami, then you'll get a beautiful wife, you'll get a nice husband, you'll get lots of money, you'll become Indra, you'll get this thing and that thing. So it's clear that in Hari Bhakti Vilas, it's a mixed crowd that they're presenting this book for. But at the end of Hari Bhakti Vilas, on the very last instructions, they've described Sarva Tyagi, Pyahiyaya, Sarvanartha Bhuvaschate, Kuryu, Pratishta Vishtaya, Yatnam Asparshane Varam. A couple of interesting words in this. One is Vishta, which means stool, which is something which Raghunath Das Goswami also speaks about in his Manasiksha. And another, he says that it's Sarvanartha Bhuvaschate. He says that Sarva Tyagya, you should be very, very careful. Give up this pratishta, which is just like stool, and somebody who's given up everything else, still they can't give this thing up. And this pratishta is sarvanartha. It causes all the different anarthas. It's a very, very dangerous thing. And we see, frankly speaking, in our Krishna consciousness movement, sometimes I compare it sometimes to being in a factory on a conveyor belt. I noticed when I joined in 1982, I moved into the LA Temple, and I was just a suffering slob. I didn't have any good qualities or anything. I came there to solve my problems. And after a few weeks, somebody asked me to give a class to the Bhaktas or something. I was in the Bhakta program. And so I gave a class. I used to be a public speaker. I was trained in debate and public speaking. And somehow what I said came out good to somebody's appreciation. And all of a sudden they said, wow, you're like an incarnation, you're this and that. And then they started asking me to give class more. And this is what happens. You just sit down on the conveyor belt. You may be a miserable slob, like myself, but after some time, all of a sudden they say, oh, you're a senior devotee. Oh, you're very expert at this, you're this. And you may not be. But all of a sudden now you're thrust into having some position and this and that. And that's not necessarily so bad in one sense, because it's some service. And Niranjan Maharaj recently was telling me that, pointing out something that for anybody who's had a position in ISKCON, being a temple president or being a bhakta leader or whatever, you may have some position, a temple commander or something. When you accept that responsibility, along with that responsibility comes a lot of mercy. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. But what happens in our society sometimes is that devotees, they start thinking this is the goal. As I mentioned, sometimes once one senior devotee told me in Mayapur, they said that Madhavananda, you should think about your career in ISKCON. And that was a very bad day for me. We don't want to think about our career. We want to think about if it is a career, we want a career in bhakti. We want to please Krishna. Not that we're coming to ISKCON for some corporate position. But it's a very dangerous thing, devotees. So dangerous that Raghunath Das Goswami speaks about it in several places. One of my favorite verses that we often quote every morning myself. He says in the beginning of his Braj Bilas Stava. Braj Bilas Stava is a wonderful, wonderful book, in which he speaks about the Jamuna and Vrindavan and Govardhan, and he speaks about Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj and different gopis, and he speaks about the cows, and he speaks about the bulls and all the animals of Braj. It's such a wonderful, very, very rustic book. But the very first verse, he says, Pratishta Rajubir Badham Kama Jervatmapati Bihi Chitvita Sangarantastha Agare Pandumam Bataha. He says that I'm on the pathway of bhakti, but Vartmapati Bihi, there's some robbers on this pathway, just like it used to be. I don't know now, not so bad probably, but still devotees discourage you from traveling at night from Radhakund or Govardhan to Vrindavan on the Chitrakar road. It's very dangerous. And there's one Mataji I spoke with once. She went for Radhakund Prakat, and very big day, Bahulastami. So many people there. Bahulastami, not Radhakund Prakat. They're two different days, actually. That's another subject. But she went for Bahulastami, packed with thousands and thousands of devotees. And they stay up until midnight to take bath in Radhakund. So when she went back, she was in the car, taxi, and as they're going, all of a sudden there was a log, a tree that had been cut down in front of the road. And so the taxi driver was going fast, and he slowed down and came to a stop. And then all of a sudden, some men jumped out, and one of them had a shotgun. Without any hesitation, he shot the shotgun, and it blew out the windshield of the taxi. And this Mataji got some pellets in her chest. She was later rushed to the hospital, and the taxi driver, you can imagine, was a little excited. He bravely, thoughtfully spun the car around and drove off very quickly. So on the road of bhakti, there's certain robbers. On this road of bhakti, we want to get Krishna prema, but if we forget why we've come, then they come and they tie us up with ropes, Rajubi. And what are the ropes that they tie us up with? Pratishta. Pratishta Rajabir Badham Kamaja Vatmapati Bihi. And that Pratishta, along with lust, so I have to cut these ropes, but I have no strength to cut them on my own. Chitvita Sangarantastan Agare Pantumam Bataha. So I'm calling out to the devotees of Krishna, Krishna who is the killer of the Agasura demon. The Pantumam Bataha, you please protect me. These are the Bhattas, these are the soldiers. On this pathway of bhakti, there's these robbers. But Krishna sent some police officers, some soldiers to protect the devotees on that road. But you have to call out for them. Otherwise, we get all tied up with this Rajabir, these ropes of Pratishta, and we can't function, we can't go anywhere. So we have to be very, very careful. In our society, Srila Prabhupada, I was commenting, maybe in our last session here, I don't know, someone recently, or a friend of mine in New Zealand, how Srila Prabhupada, seeing that there was basically no culture in the West, and culture is so important. Prabhupada sometimes commented that the Krishna consciousness movement is a cultural movement. But there's just no culture. There's no culture of respect in the West. Nobody respects anyone at all, practically. So to kickstart that, to artificially try to create that, Srila Prabhupada made our temples. And there's some culture there. You get up at a certain time of the morning, you offer obeisances to each other, you take prasadam in a certain way, you're trained up in a certain way to give us this system of culture. But at the same time, that system that he gave us, there's some inherent difficulties. As Srila Prabhupada said in that Nectar Devotion quote, as long as someone desires any kind of position, whether it be in the material world or in the spiritual position, then they can't enjoy Krishna consciousness. They're not going to get happiness in Krishna consciousness. So there's a danger in our society, and that danger is pratishta. And we've seen many, many people fall prey to this danger, even big, big devotees. Of course, Srila Prabhupada one time commented, who's really a big, big devotee? He said a big, big devotee means someone who stays. But Prabhupada sometimes would make fun of them also. He said he has a big, big persons. They're taking so much money from people, from the devotees, and they have a big position. They're demanding respect and things. My Guru Maharaj once he said that you should look out for the back benchers, the devotees in the back who are not desiring any position for themselves. Those are the devotees who are really practicing bhakti. And there's no motivation for it. I oftentimes comment that although the ladies in our society, they've been abused in many ways, as have the householders, as have the guru coolies, as have so many different people. But those ladies have a good fortune. And that good fortune is that they're not given much of a position. Now things are kind of changing a little bit in our society, but in general, devotees don't give much respect to women in our society. It's kind of like, oh, the Prabhu's over here and the Mataji's over there. Mataji is like a derogatory term or something. It's like a second-class citizen. And in general, ladies, although Srila Prabhupada wanted Jamuna to be a GBC member, in general, there haven't been a lot of ladies with positions. And Prabhupada, it's same with temple presidents, although Prabhupada addressed Jamuna sometimes as a temple president. So we have to be very, very careful. Raghunath Das Goswami again speaks about this in his Manasiksha in text 7. And I know Gauranitai Prabhu must be familiar with this. You recite Manasiksha every day, Gauranitai Prabhu? I was doing it for some time. It's a really, really beautiful thing to do. So in text 7 there, he says, Pratista sadrishta sapacharamani me hridinatet katam sadhu prema spesiti sucha etan nanumana sadatvam sevasva prabhudayita samanta matulam yatatam niskasya tvarita mihatam deshayatisa. He says that, my dear mind, this is so bad. There's this pratista asa. Asa means some desire, and pratista means for some position, prestige. And this desire for position is just like a drishta, like a drishta means someone who's very impudent, someone who's very audacious. And it's a woman, the feminine thing, swapacha ramani. She's a very low-caste woman who eats dogs and things. Me hridinatet. And she's come to live in my heart, this pratishta. With that in my heart, katam, how sadhu prema sprisiti, how am I going to be touched? How will my heart be touched with sadhu prema, this very, very wonderful prema? Etan nanumana. It can't even touch me, because I have this, as long as I have this desire in my heart. So as long as this thing is there, sadatvam sevasva prabhudayita samantamatam, you have to, he says, take shelter again of the devotees. Just the same point he's making in the beginning of Braj Vilas Stava. Here he says that we have to take shelter of that devotee who's prabhudayita, who's a very powerful samanta, a commander. Prabhudayita samantam atulam, who's atula, who's a very, very powerful, special personality, who's a commander in Krishna's army. He can, by rendering service to him, he can drive that thing out. Otherwise, how can I get this Krishna prem? So Narottam Das Thakur is giving us this Prema-bhakti-candrika. And it's the moon rays of bhakti. And he's warning us in this verse today that if you don't be careful, if you don't avoid this pratishta, then it'll spoil everything. And so my Guru Maharaj, he spoke like that. He said, in the beginning, you were very good when you came. But after some time, you forgot why you've come. And now you're just thinking about having some position or something. For the Vaishnavas, they don't look for a position. They're happy with whatever Krishna gives them. They give up the attitude of entitlement. That attitude of entitlement is a very, very dangerous thing. We hear in the Chaitanya Charitamrita about Ramachandra Puri in, let me share this with you, in Anchilila chapter 8. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes the nature of Ramachandra Puri. We'll come to some questions and things in a little bit here. And he says, Anyamantrana bhiksha kore nahika nirnoy. Anyara bhiksha rashtitara loyena nishchoy. That Ramachandra Puri, he would just show up at people's houses and tell them, I'm the godbrother of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's guru, and you should give me some prasadam. You should treat me nice. I've seen many devotees do like this, and sometimes even sannyasis, or senior devotees, that they demand some respect. But we hear later or earlier in the Adi Lila chapter 17 that what is the nature of a Vaishnava? Ei mata Vaishnava kori kicha namagiba ayachitta britti. He follows ayachitta britti. Ayachitta britti means that just whatever comes on its own. Kimba shaka phala kaiba. If they don't get anything nice to eat, then kimba shaka phala. They'll just eat some spinach. And here the word shak refers to, like, for some of you, you may know there's certain wild plants which grow. There's certain types of wild things I've seen in America, I've seen in Europe, I've seen in India. It's a natural kind of shak. And it just grows anywhere and everywhere. So you can accept that thing. You can live on that thing. But this is the nature of a Vaishnava. They don't ask anything from anybody. And they just accept whatever is given to them. Sadanamaloy beyeta labeti santosh. They should be santosh. They should be satisfied with the holy name and whatever they get in a natural way. Eta achar kore bhakti dharma posh. And if someone behaves in this way, then bhakti dharma posh, they'll become very, very fixed in bhakti. There's a beautiful verse by Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur in his Vrindavan Mahimamrita. He says, Brata bhoga sabu. Let me just think for a second. Bharta bhoga subukta ka ihanabha vatanapi sansara madhye. It's not that meter either. Bharta bhoga subukta ka ihana bhavatanapi sansara madhye vidyadhana dharadhyai katti jagati kyati pujyadya alabdaha ajyaharepi yadrichika uru gunavan apyaho samvitatma Srimad Vrindavaneshmin Sattatamata Sake Sarvato Mukta Sangaha. He says, my dear Bharta, my dear brother, Bhoga Subukta, what kind of enjoyment have you not already had in this samsara madhya, being situated in this world of birth and death? Vidya, dana, what kind of fame and knowledge have you not already gotten? What kind of wealth have you not already gotten? And so he says, for now, you should practice this yadvichika, this ayachitta britti. Just accept whatever comes on its own. And look to see the good qualities in all people. Uru gunavan. You look for the guna, the good qualities in everyone. Apyaho samvitatma. And, you should just wander. Srimad Vrindavaneshwar Satatam. Always just wander in the forest of Vrindavan, obscure, unknown, without any companion. Sarvavato, always mukta sangaha, without anyone with you. And what does that mean? That means you're going to die alone and without anybody there. No one's going to know who you are. And they're not going to have a big program at the temple with a slideshow and talk about what a great guy you were and how many books you distributed and how many Mridanga-tals that Jaigor knew and what a great musician he was and how handsome he was and how kind and this and that and the other. But they don't even know who you were. And they might not find your body for many years, and the jackals will just come and eat the body. And this, Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur says, this is perfection. That nobody even knows when you die. You're just moving without any friend. And when he says here, mukta sangaha, it doesn't mean that we're physically alone necessarily, but it means that we live alone in the crowd. It means that we hide whatever good qualities that we have. In the Manasanhita, there's a nice verse. Maybe I could look it up really quickly, actually. Let's see. Which describes the nature of a wise person, a wise Brahmin. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. Samana brahmano nityam udvijeta vishariva amritashiva chapkamshed avamana shasarvada sukham hyavamata sete sukham cha pratibhudyate sukham charati lokesmin avamanta vinashiti. Throughout his life, Samana brahmano nityam, the Brahmin should always, he should consider udvijeta or some material prestige or position to be like bish, to be like poison. And chakang shed means someone dishonors you, they criticize you. That's amrit. That's like nectar. This is a wise person. And if you behave like this, then your agitations will go away and you'll be very happy. And sukham, Yavamata sete sukham cha pratibhudyate. You'll be able to sleep happily, you'll be awake happily, you'll move about happily. But that person who criticizes you because of their sin, they'll become regretful. And their happiness in this and the next life, sukham chariti lokesmin avamanta vinashiti. Vinashiti means that it'll be destroyed. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur quoted this verse in his collection called Brahmana Vaishnava. So that's the nature of a wise person. A wise person doesn't want anything for themselves. They practice this ayachitta vritti. They don't ask for anything. And we see this in the case of Madhavendra Puri. When Madhavendra Puri arrived at Govinda Kund, he wasn't begging. He didn't eat anything for several days. And Krishna was feeling very sorry for that. But Madhavendra Puri, he'd taken this vow, ayachitta vritti, I won't ask for anything from anybody. And so then Krishna appeared to him before him as a cowherd boy and said, hey, sadhu, what kind of vow, what kind of brata, what kind of bhajan are you doing? And he said that some of the ladies in the village, they sent me to bring you this pot of milk. Because in my village, when nobody asks for anything, when a sadhu doesn't ask for anything, I personally come and bring him things. And he gave that pot of milk to Madhavendra Puri. And Madhavendra Puri didn't realize who he was until after he left, and Madhavendra Puri drank that milk and became very, very ecstatic. And then he realized that must have been Krishna. We see the same thing in the life of Srila Prabhupada, that when Prabhupada initially went to the West, sometimes he was staying with people, they were keeping meat in the refrigerator. That's just such an inconceivably disgusting thing. I can't even imagine keeping some boga for Krishna in the refrigerator when someone's keeping some dead flesh in there and an odor and things. Prabhupada was doing it. Prabhupada was tolerating it. Prabhupada was living in the Bowery. And they said when devotees would go to visit him, there was a stench of urine out on the street, and there were drunks laying in the street unconscious. And you had to step over them. This is how Prabhupada was living. Prabhupada in 26 Second Avenue, the early devotees said that in the early days, everybody just did everything together, more or less, and the ladies would give class, and men would give class, and men would lead kirtan, the ladies would lead kirtan, and they shared the same bathroom, they shared the same colored cloth and things. And when they stand in the bathroom, sometimes Srila Prabhupada would also stand in the bathroom queue and wait for his disciples to go ahead of him. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada was personally washing the dishes before the devotees knew something about his position. My godbrother Satchidananda Prabhu was the first person that my Guru Maharaj made into a devotee in Bhubaneswar when he came there on Prabhupada's order to preach. And his name was Shruti, I can't remember his name. Anyway, he was riding with Guru Maharaj around on a bicycle, and he used to call Guru Maharaj Sir. And when the property was donated at the place which is now ISKCON Bhubaneswar, Guru Maharaj shifted out there, but there was no place to stay. There was at that time there were wild elephants and tigers in the area. Literally, there were cobras. It was a crazy, crazy place. But they were building National Highway Number 5, and so my Guru Maharaj begged from the highway workers, "Can I stay in the tent with you?" And when Satchidananda Prabhu later saw that he was staying in the tent with the road workers in India are very low class. You think they're low class in Europe or America. It's nothing compared to India. They use all types of foul language. They eat all kinds of nasty non-vegetarian things. They smoke, they drink. And when Satchidananda Prabhu saw that Guru Maharaj, this very pure, saintly Vaishnava sannyasi, was staying there, he was shocked. He said, "My God, Maharaj, how can you stay there?" And Guru Maharaj very humbly replied to him. He said, "No, this is good." He said, "This is what my Guru Maharaj sent for me." So he was just tolerating and accepting whatever Srila Prabhupada gave to him. And that's the nature of the Vaishnavas. They don't need anything for themselves. Rather, our principle is we want to empower others. This is a principle of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We see that Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the beginning of Harinam Chintamani, he comments that through the mouth of Ramananda Roy, Mahaprabhu taught rasa. Through the mouth of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Mahaprabhu sat and listened, and he learned about Mukti Tattva. Through the mouth of Rupa Goswami, Mahaprabhu taught about rasa tattva again. And through the mouth of Haridas Thakur, he taught about Nam Tattva. And Mahaprabhu sat like a very humble person to teach us the importance of empowerment and not wanting to not feeling ourselves to be entitled, not wanting a whole lot of prestige and position for ourselves. It's a very, very dangerous thing. It's something which is very, very intoxicating that we have to be very careful of. The devotees, they don't want this position, but everybody in the material world wants something. In Jagannath Puri, they have a leper colony over near the temple of Lokanath Mahadev. And there was some controversy in the leper colony. These are people that are rejects from society. Nobody wants them for anything. But there was a controversy there because they were bringing them, giving them some charity every day. And some of the lepers said, "This is not good. I'm a Brahmin leper. And this other guy here, he's a Sudra leper. He should give me some special situation." So in Jagannath Puri, right across from Ishapanti Ashram, there's some property of the Gaudiya Mutt. And so the Gaudiya Mutt, they opened up a separate leper colony just for Brahmin lepers because they were complaining now that they're no longer taking care of that anymore. But this is the nature of pratishta, that we think that we become such a big, big person. In Harinam Chintamani, Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks about this. in chapter 4, I'd like to share with you some of these verses where he speaks about, he says that Krishnaika Sanatai Sadhu Lakshana, the Sadhu Lakshana, the Sarup Lakshana, my grandmas used to often quote this section, the principal characteristic of a sadhu is Krishnaika Sarana, that they're taking shelter of Krishna. And someone, Sadhu Bolya Parichay Deo Dambikata, who's claiming to be a sadhu, that person's just full of arrogance. And he says, Krishnaika Sarana Mata Krishna Nama Gai Sadhu Nama Parichitta Krishna Kripai. As soon as someone fully surrenders to Krishna, then that the symptom is they'll be able to chant Krishna's name. And then automatically you'll get reputation. You don't have to look for it. But Krishna Bhakta Vyatita Nahika Sadhu are. There's nobody who's more qualified to be called a sadhu, Vyatita Nahika Sadhu are, than a Krishna Bhakta. But if someone says, Ami Sadhu Boli, they're saying this Ami Sadhu, then Hoy Damba Avatar, they're just an incarnation of arrogance and pride. And nobody likes such a person. Everybody loves a sadhu who's very, very humble and sweet. Chanakya Pandit has described that Swahasta Grahita Mala, Swahasta Grishta Chandanam, Swahasta Likitam Stotram, Sakrashyapi Sriyam Haret. That even Indra, who's a big, big person, if Indra makes a garland for himself and he puts it on, or if Indra makes some sandalwood paste to put on himself so that everybody be impressed that he's a sadhu, he has a garland, he has some sandalwood paste. Or Indra, he writes Swahasa Likitam Stotam, he writes some prayers to himself. He'll lose all of his good qualities, even Indra, who's gotten that position from Krishna. And Krishna in the Bhagavatam says that Indrari Vyakalam Lokam Hridayanti Yuge Yuge, that you'll lose all your good qualities if you take to this pratishtha. And even Indra will lose. And Indrari Vyakalam Lokam Hridayanti Yuge Yuge. Even though Krishna has given Indra that position, he's working for Indra. Krishna comes again and again to protect Indra. And Chanakya Pandit says, Parai Ukta Guno Yastu Nirguno Pi Guni Bhavet Indro Pi Lagutam Yati Swayam Prakyapitar Gunai. That someone, even they don't have any good qualities. Ukta Guna, they have no good qualities. But Nirguna Pi Guna Bhavet, if somebody else praises them, then they become honorable in society. We appreciate them. But Indriyo pi lagutam yati, someone may have guna, they may have good qualities, but they become dishonorable. In lagutam, they become insignificant if they praise themselves. Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings about this. My Guru Maharaj oftentimes would sing this song because he saw the need for this topic. Chai Gore's got to step up. I'm just glancing over the comments here. We'll go over these in a little bit. I just want to make sure nobody's leaving anything. I want to share with you this song from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Kripa Koro Vaishnava Thakura. He says, oh, my dear Sadhu Vaishnava, please be merciful to me. Sambandha Janiya Bhajite Bhajite Abhimano Haudura. If I get mercy from you, then I'll understand what is my sambandha, my connection with Krishna. And I'll really be able to worship, and my abhiman, my false ego, will go away. Amito Vaishnava Ebudi Hoile Amanina Hogo Ami Katistasa Asi Hridoya Dushibe Hoibo Nidhaya Gami. If I start thinking Amito Vaishnava Ebudi Hoile, I get this attitude that I'm a Vaishnava, then what will happen, Amanina Hogo Ami, I won't be able to give respect to others. Patistasa Asi hridaya dusibe, then my heart will be polluted with the desire to get respect from others. And hoibo nirayagami, I'll go to hell. Tomara kinkora apane janibo guru abhimanu chaji. Tomara huchista parajala renu sadhaniskapate bahaji. Therefore, my only thing, all that I know, apane janibo, is that I'm your servant. Tomara kinkora. And Guru Abhimana Tyaji, I give up the attitude that I'm a guru. Tomara Uchista, I always worship the remnants of your food. Padajala Renu, the dust of your feet and the water that's washed your feet. And in this way, Sada Niskapati Bhaji, I'm able to worship without any kapacha, without any duplicity. My worship is sincere. Nija Shrestha Jani, Uchistadi Dani, Hobe Abhimana Bahara. As soon as I start thinking that I'm an important person, then I'll give the remnants of my food. I remember once, I won't say any names, but I was staying in one temple with a senior devotee. It was actually very sweet in many ways. I was going out for Sankirtan that day. He was a temple president, and he had a piece of cake that he was eating. And he took a bite out of the cake, and then he just turned and gave me his remnants as a blessing when I'm going out in Sankirtan. I was a little taken aback that he would do like that. I don't know if he was doing it out of pride, and I'm not saying his name purposely. He's a wonderful devotee. But Bhaktivinoda here is saying that this will happen. I'll start thinking I can give my remnants to other devotees, and if I do that, then hobe abhimanam para. Then I'll get this huge false ego. Bara means very big. Rather, he says, Tai sishya tabataki asarbada naloiba pujakar. I'm always going to think of myself as your disciple. And I won't accept any worship from myself. Sometimes the devotees would see Srila Prabhupada during Guru Puja playing kartals and singing Shri Guru Charana Padma along with the devotees. And someone was a little confused about that. And I don't know if he asked Srila Prabhupada, he asked some devotee, but what's going on, Srila Prabhupada was praying to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati at that time. He's not thinking this is for me. He's, as my Guru Maharaj would say, he's a pipe. He's not thinking he's the source of the water. Bhaktivinoda goes on to say, Amani manada hoile kirtane adikara dibe tumi. When I give respect to others and don't demand any respect for myself, then I'll really be able to do kirtan. I'll really have qualification for it. Tomara charane nishkapati ami kandiya luti bobumi. Then nishkapatiyami, without any kapacha, with sincerity, I'll be able to cry. Kandiya luti babumi, and I'll roll on the ground. At the feet, tomara charani, the lotus feet of the devotees. And we can make advancement in this way. Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Saranagati, there's another song that I like very much. That he sings a similar point. I'll share this with you too. Garita chare rohi lama moji nakorinu sadhu sangha. He says, what is my achar, my behavior? We want to have sadachar, but I have garita achar. Garita means something scary and terrible. Rohi lama moji nakorinu sadhu sangha. I'm always doing all kinds of bad things. I've never associated with sadhus. But loyi sadhu vesh ani upadesh. Here I am, dressed like a sadhu, giving instructions. Ebodo maya ranga. This is Maya's big joke. We should think like that. We should be very, very cautious and be afraid if someone wants to give us some big position. We may accept that out of humility, because real humility means that we surrender to Guru, we do what Guru instructs us. Not that, oh, Gurudev, you're telling me to do this thing or that thing, but I'm too humble, Gurudev. I'm so humble. I'm so humble. I can't follow your instruction. That's not humility. Humility means that whatever Gurudev tells me, I do. If Gurudev tells me that I should dance in public, that I should be a big person, that I should be guru, I should be whatever, then we have to accept that. We have no choice. But we don't think that I'm qualified for this thing. Rather, we're always eager to have the chastisement of Gurudev. There's a beautiful verse in Sanat Kumar Sanghita. Tadanam Bhartsanam Kami Bhogyat Venigatastriyaha Granati Vaishnavanam Cha Tad Grayam Tata Budhai. That the verse describes that in the same way that someone who's Kami Bhogyat Vena, who's a very lusty fellow, he gets a lot of pleasure, Tadanam Bhartsanam, by when a striya, when his mistress, is a prostitute, beats him, chastises him, he gets a lot of pleasure from that. In the same way, someone who's Buddhai, someone who's a wise person, Granati Vaishnavanam Cha Tad Grayam Tata, they take pleasure when a Vaishnava chastises and beats them. That's not an easy thing to do. That's something that we can say with the lips, but to actually do that is a very, very difficult thing. Because we have so much pride. If someone comes and says something bad about us, we can't tolerate that. We become very, very angry. And sometimes we exhibit some spoken humility, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur described it in Prema-bhakti-candrika. I'll show you a beautiful statement Bhaktivinoda says about this. He says, nothing will be achieved by exhibiting mere spoken humility. You're not going to get anything from that. We often say, Prabhu, I'm not even qualified to become a servant of the Vaishnavas. But internally we're thinking at the same time, by hearing such statements, the audience will give me honor, thinking me to be a pure devotee. Oh, he's so humble. Look how he is. Like he's a very, very advanced person. And Bhaktivinoda says, alas, the desire for prestige is not wanting to leave us. Such a nasty, nasty thing. Such a very, very difficult thing. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says that the way to become free from Namboli Pap Buddhi, committing strength on the holy name, is we have to give up prestige. And the way to do that, the medicine for that, is we want to associate with the devotees. So this is in Harinam Chintamani in chapter 9. I'll share these verses with you here. They're really beautiful. Bhaktivinoda says, Yadyapi pramade nama bholi papa buddhi. Yadyapi means if. That you've done this pramada nama parada, you've done this namboli pap buddhi, this offense of committing sinful activities on the strength of the holy name, you can become purified. Kari tara sudha, you can become purified by Shuddha Vaishnava Sangha, by associating with pure Vaishnavas. Papa striya bhata pada pati asidare. So that, again, he's speaking about the same thing which Raghunath Das Goswami is speaking about, this highway robbers. Papa striya bhata pada pati. They're like robbers on the pathway of bhakti. And these temptations to do these sinful activities are always there. But Vishuddha Vaishnava Gana, the pure Vaishnavas, they're the rakshas, or the Pata rakshas, they're the guards which protect us on this highway. So how do we call out for them? Uchai sware dhake rakshakera nama dhari. By calling out very loudly the Krishna's name, calling out for the devotees. Then pali bhata pada aisivi prahai. Those devotees will come, and then the thieves will run away. Adari balibi bhai nahi karam bhai. Amita rakshaka tava shuna mahashai. And the Vaishnavas, and they'll tell you, don't worry, Amita Rakshaka, I'm here to protect you. Shuni Mahashai, you have confidence in me. Everything is okay. We just take shelter of the devotees of the Lord. Otherwise, that pride will destroy everything. There's a story I want to finish with that once the river became proud. River was thinking to itself, there's nobody as powerful as myself practically. I can wash away everything, mountains, houses, trees, animals, people. And so one day, out of pride, the river went to the ocean and told the ocean, look, this is your lucky day. Would you like me to bring something for you? You're just sitting here all night. I can bring you whatever you like. I can bring you some houses, if you want a few, I can bring you 100 cows. I can bring you some trees, whatever you like. I can uproot and bring everything with me. So the ocean understood, Samudra understood, now this river has some pride in his position. So the ocean told the river, well, actually there is something I would like. If you want to bring something for me, you should uproot some grass and bring that to me. The river said, is that all that you want? I can bring you some big trees or mountains. No. Grass is just fine. That's all that I want. So then the river overflooded and it went through a big field and it exerted all its strength on the grass. But the grass didn't get uprooted. And the river tried and tried again and again, and it failed. And finally the river gave up and it went to the ocean and said, I can uproot houses and trees and mountains and so many huge things. But when I apply the same force to uproot the grass just bows down. And I have to, I just pass over it empty-handed. And so then the ocean who was listening smiled and said, those persons who are very hard and rigid, like mountains and trees, they're very easily uprooted. But someone who learns the humility of grass can't be disturbed, even by the most powerful wind, the most powerful storms, even the river passes over them. So we should understand that happiness in life, it comes when we practice this teachings that Mahaprabhu gave us, the Tunada Pisa Niching, to become like the grass. So many people, they think that happiness in life means to win battles. But real success in life doesn't mean fighting battles. Real success in life means avoiding battles. Someone who can avoid a fight, that's a real victory. Because people today, that they become so proud. So Narottam Das Thakur, in this 14th verse, Prema-bhakti-candrika, he's warning us of this great obstacles in our devotional path. We'll just look at the verse one more time and we'll stop for today. We can have some discussion. Nakoriyo asa chesha labha puja pratishta sadachinta govinda charan. That don't fall prey to this chase of thinking about desiring this labha puja pratishta, this profit, adoration, and distinction. Rather, just always think about Krishna. And if you do that, then Shakale Vipati Jabe, all the problems, all the difficulties in the world will go away. And Mahananda Sukha Pabe, you'll get the greatest happiness. Prema-bhakti-candrika. You'll receive pure devotional service, or if you practice this pure devotional service in this way, it means to give up this love of puja, pratisha, and all these things. As Vaishnavas, or aspiring Vaishnavas, when someone comes to us, my Guru Maharaj once, I told him, the Guru Maharaj, I'm afraid to go to Malaysia. I once told him that we were in the airport together. And he said, why are you afraid? Vaishnava is never afraid. And I said, well, Guru Maharaj, I'm afraid because when I go there, they asked me to give class like a lot, like every day for, once I think I was there for 2 months and I gave Bhagavatam class every day. And the resident sannyasi was sitting in the classes every day and listening. And they were organizing programs and things for me. I said, so Guru Maharaj, he said, no, someone asks you to speak, you speak. And I said, but Guru Maharaj, what's the benefit? And then he told me, if someone asks you to speak, you must. You have no other choice. But when you speak, you just repeat what you've heard from your guru and the previous acharyas. And he jammed his finger in my chest. I tell this story quite often. And he says, and don't think it belongs to you. So if someone tells us to do something, Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj tells Anapayani Radha, you be in charge, you do this big service in Govardhan, and you do the landscaping for this project. then you have no choice. You have to do it. Not that you say, oh, Guru Maharaj, I'm not really qualified. I can't do that. With that instruction comes empowerment. And real humility means that we act on that thing. And if we don't act on that order that we've gotten from Guru, that's another kind of pratishta, another kind of pride that, oh, can't you see, I'm such an elevated person. I'm so humble. They offered to me this thing and I won't accept it. So I'll go ahead and stop there. Let me read over some of the comments that we've got here. Ujjwala Rashiya commented that ladies were given so much respect and were once given, I think, and were considered to be the backbone of the family and society too. They usually win by losing, while men seem to win by losing. That's a really beautiful comment. Wow. Ladies win by losing, while the men seem to win, but they're actually losing. It's a fact. That's the nature of ladies. They're successful because it seems like they're defeated. Ornitai Prabhu comments, if one follows Lord Chaitanya and takes sannyas, which is a definite position in the society, for preaching reason, is that wrong? Or is it not wrong, but dangerous because people glorifying him? And that could be too difficult to digest in an immature stage. If you did a search online for Niranjan Maharaj in Almaty, sannyas ceremony, it was one of the most recent classes Niranjan Maharaj gave. He gave sannyas to a couple of older brahmacharis. And he gave a talk. Bhakti-Vigyan Maharaj was also there. And the two of them gave the most amazing, wonderful talks. And they said that if you think that by getting sannyas that you're better than the other devotees, if by getting sannyas that you're worthy of respect and people should offer obeisances to you, then you've completely misunderstood. That's not what sannyas is for at all. In Chaitanya Bhagavat, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, there's a number of verses where he speaks to Mahaprabhu about the problems with sannyas. He says, why are you taking sannyas? Everybody will want to offer obeisances to you. They'll want to give you respect, and then you'll spoil all your bhakti. That's the nature of things. But at the same time, if Guru wants that, then we must. We do whatever service Gurudev wants because we don't own this body. This body belongs to Gurudev, but we should be very, very careful of these things. We've seen many sannyasis in our society have taken sannyas for the wrong reason. Sometimes ladies, they put on white for the wrong reason. I remember one senior Mataji in Los Angeles who, I think her husband had died or they divorced or something, and she put on white. And once she came, there was a prasadam table in front of the temple during the Sunday feast, and she came over and asked them for some prasadam. And they said, yes, so it's, I don't know, $2 or something. They wanted to charge her some money. And at that time, she grabbed her white cloth and said, do you see the color of this? She said, I'm a renunciate. You should give me. And so sometimes devotees, they do like that. They try to demand something. It's a really, really terrible, terrible thing. I can tell you for myself, I'm full of pride and full of all kinds of problems and things. But one thing I've always avoided, I don't recall ever asking someone to give class. And I just don't. Sometimes we go places and we stay for a week or two and nobody asks us. Actually, we stayed for over a year in Mayapur and they never ever ask us to give class. And that's fine. I'm happy with that. It's a peaceful thing. When we give class, it's not that we should be doing it for ourselves. We should be doing it as a service. Just like a pujari, we give the example of the offering artik in the morning. When they come out to blow the conch, they see 5,000 people there. And the pujari thinks, oh, they're here to watch me. That's a fall down. You're there to do service. You're there as a representative of your guru. And the same thing with Hari Katha. We're doing that as a service. And our real purpose is we want to have some discussion. We want to make people think. So let's see. Ujjwala Rashiya commented, in a Vedic setting, only by surrendering to the general in bhakti and serving him is pratishtha driven out. Very wonderful. And Jai Gaura's commented, don't eat the ones that grow in the Gobar Prabhu, mushrooms. Yeah. Mushroom devotees. Ujjwala Rasiga also commented, thanks so much for this important katha and the constant thread of pratishta and shield to protect from it. It's interesting, sad, and funny that even a pauper or villain who has nothing can be affected by pratishta. It's such a subtle thing. Someone is a useless person, nobody appreciates them at all, but then they get married and they want to exercise their control over their wife. You should listen to me. I'm the Guru Pati. Or they have children and they think now, finally, somebody's here to respect me. And they want to treat their children like they're slaves. That's not Vaishnava-like. Pratishta is such a difficult thing to avoid. So I want to go ahead and stop there. Let's see, who should we? I think Anupani Radha, you're here. I don't know if you heard much. I'm not sure when you joined.
Krishna.
Better go to breakfast, I think, soon, right? Do you have any comments or things you want to
please accept my humble obeisances. I joined later than you started, but I really appreciate the story and the point, which was connected with the story of the river, how the position of the grass, so the lesson I'm taking with me today, the position of the grass, a very safe position. And basically when we are stepping out of this position, we're just throwing ourselves in the ocean of miseries. And I just want to be reminded of that. So whenever my mind lead me to that
I remember
direction.
we were there in Puri right after the super cyclone in 1999, and I saw huge banyan trees. There's a big banyan tree right by the Gopinath temple we walk by every time. Remember, it's ripped out. It's on the side. It was ripped out during that time. But that banyan, that the winds didn't drive any grass out. With the big trees, they did. Are you okay, Anna Pine? It's like you have a cold or something.
Yeah, I have a rough morning today. Sorry.
Okay, I hope everything's all right for you. Is Pranahari there? Would you like to share anything?
No, he went for a job. He's in the Grand Canyon. He's on the way to the Grand Canyon.
All right. Have you seen the Grand Canyon yet?
No, because I really don't want to go with the type of tour he's doing, because it's only 2 hours there. So we decided we go one day, that we stop for the whole day there for the night.
Yeah, Grand Canyon's such a thing. You could probably spend one lifetime and not see everything. It's a really, really amazing place. It's far out to sea. You know, if you go there, they have the ranger station, and they one of the far out things about the Grand Canyon, the Colorado River, is cut through so many different layers of rock, and the geologists have been able to tell different layers in which time they came from. So they have the oldest stratus of rock, and they've given a name to it. They call it the Vishnu strata.
Oh, really? Wow.
It's the most Krishna conscious thing I saw when I was there. I still remember this day.
I mean, devotees distributing books there, like, I think on a daily basis.
Oh, really? Oh, that's really
Yeah.
awesome to hear. I'm so happy.
Yeah.
That's really
There are
cool.
specific devotees who are doing there, yeah.
So you got to have Grand Canyon darshan. You haven't had Trader Joe darshan yet either, have you?
We had, but Madame Prabhu, I have to tell you, it's a good one. They like very unique. But I don't think you've been in Whole Food. that's
Whole Foods is bigger.
even more serious.
Whole Foods is bigger.
Yeah.
But
The shelf with the vegan ice cream is like half of your library.
Yeah.
The Trader Joe's is cool.
It's amazing to get. All right, thank you, Anupine.
Thank you.
Tirtha Prabhu, do you want to share anything?
Yes, so it was a really nice katha, as always. And I really like this point where you mentioned that you spoke about your Guru Maharaj, that whatever troubles were coming, he was actually seeing it as a mercy of his Guru. And I was thinking that that's really nice meditation, that we should not really look for easy situations in a life. And because like I was thinking, it's like a small thing, but I got really nice realization when you said when you have this consciousness that you are actually at peace, you know. And today I was just coming to meet one devotee, and he was telling me, oh, if you park here, it is easier, and if you park there, it will be more difficult. And I was thinking, like, I don't really actually care if it is easier or difficult. I just want to get there and achieve that thing. And I was thinking that this consciousness we should have, you know, if Guru tells us something, we should just do it. And you should not be so much concerned if it is easy or difficult, because that's gives you a peace, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen sometimes devotees, they say, Gurudev gave me his mercy. He told me to be the temple president. It's Gurudev's mercy. One brahmachari once told me, as he came out of Guru Maharaj's hut, he said, Guru Maharaj told me I should get married, which is something that he wanted. You know, it wasn't really coming from Guru Maharaj. Whereas, on the other hand, if Guru gives some difficult service or chastises us, then we don't feel very happy about that.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you, because I'm listening this meeting at Kurukshetra. I'm in the 35th part now, and it's all connected with what you were saying also today, that it's actually so difficult to understand the pure devotees, you know, and especially like a guru, because like for years on that part particularly you explained how when Uddhava met with Nanda Maharaj and how Nanda Maharaj was treating him. And actually, he preferred actually affection above the different rules and regulations with the meeting of the guests, right? And for years, I couldn't understand why my Guru Maharaj doesn't allow me to wash his feet, but he didn't mind to embrace me when we met and like that. I was always like so disturbed by that. Like that's not my right as a disciple. I'm supposed to do that. And he never allowed me. And I was thinking that I'm probably so fallen that he doesn't even allow me that. But actually I realized that all these years he was just teaching me affection. And you made it so clear on that class. It was so amazing. You know, I was listening and maybe like those, I think last half an hour. And in this half an hour, I summarized like 20 years of my practice. You know? It was really nice. Thank you, Prabhu.
Sometimes a saintly person will insist that he be worshipped. Like Srila Prabhupada was angry sometimes when the devotees didn't do Guru Puja or something. My Guru Maharaj once was angry with a Mataji and chastised her because her service was to make a garland for him every day, and she didn't do it one day. But that is a very difficult thing to understand. And that's one way, not always, but a sadhu may manifest their humility in that way, that they're taking this position, this very difficult position, just like you may chastise your children, and you really don't enjoy it, but you do it because you have to. You know if you don't, it's going to be bad for them. It may look like you're just a crazy dictator and you're getting some joy by torturing the children or something. But actually, it's your humility. It's a manifestation of your love for your children that you're doing that. So it's very, very deep, very difficult to understand the Vaishnava.
Yeah, because one time he came to our place to visit, and I prepared all this, you know, for washing the feet and like that. And he said, "Just put it away, put it somewhere else." I was like, "Okay." Like I really tried, you know, to please him, but now when you explain it on the class, it was like so clear. Actually, that was not his intention. He was teaching me some other lesson. But it took me years to understand that. You know?
Yeah. Sometimes we think we have a right, because I'm a disciple, I have a right to do this, but we don't. Gurudev's a person.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you. Siddha Hari Prabhu, do you want to share anything? Are you there?
Yes, Prabhu. Sorry, Hare Krishna. I'm here. I'm doing the wonderful Seva which Radha we used to do earlier, cleaning the cow dung. I was reflecting on your class. It was very amazing. You know, so fresh, so refreshing to hear from you. You know, pouring a rainfall of verses and passages from so many different books. As I said before, it's like eating a feast with 20 different items being served on your plate, and you're wondering which one to enjoy first. And before you enjoy the next one comes. In fact, I would like in the future, maybe, you know, to write down the verses you're sharing and, you know, meditate on them more, because there's so much to share in this 1 hour. Thank you for doing that, Prabhu.
You know, I really like this verse from Prabodhananda Saraswati, Vrindavan Mahimamrita, that just die alone without anybody knowing who you are. That, for me, that's such a powerful thing to meditate.
Yes, Prabhu. Prabhu, 2 comments I had on this. I mean, one was a question and one was a comment. one comment was that, I feel also in that menial position when you're doing the service in the background, Krishna in the heart is reciprocating also with the devotee who is working in the background, that he's giving him so much joy and so much happiness that he just wants to stay in the background because he's getting so much inner happiness from doing the menial service or staying in the background. So that was like a reflection. And then a comment was, like there's one thing to feel, that you're lonely. Another thing I was also thinking was that sometimes, I feel for myself that, I feel lonely because also I don't have such qualification. Like in your case, I'm not making comparison to you and me, but I'm just saying that like you are so wonderfully, such a wonderful speaker. The devotees and the sannyasis were asking you to speak for 2 months straight Bhagavatam, and then you were feeling the sense of humility that you don't want to be so much in the forefront. But I was wondering, there is one thing to feel humble after having so many qualities, but another thing also to not have any qualities and feel humble about that. So I was wondering, isn't there like shouldn't as devotees we be striving for perfection or getting better at devotional service at the same time having the attitude of humility? Isn't there like some kind of like a competition going on between the two, that in one sense we want to perfect the service we're doing and get better at our serving our Guru Maharaj and the Guru Parampara, at the same time one has to maintain the attitude that one is doing everything by the mercy of spiritual master?
Sometimes devotees, when they give a good class or when they cook something nice or they do a good kirtan, people come and they say, wow, that was really good, Prabhu, that was a great kirtan. And we say, oh, what can I say? But I've seen sadhus who say, yeah, it was good. It was good. It was a good class. And they can say that with humility because they're like a pipe. And they're thinking that it's not me. It's good because the ideas came from my Gurudev. It's good because the inspiration came from my Gurudev. It's good because the order to do it came from my Gurudev. So it all belongs to him. So yeah, you should say more nice things. You should glorify even more because it belongs to him and not to me. But that again is a very deep thing and a very difficult thing. And of course, socially, it's probably not the best way to behave either. People will misunderstand. If Jai Gaur starts saying, yeah, that was a good kirtan, you should appreciate me more, then the devotees may start thinking, yeah, well, that's the way we should behave. Jai Gaur is such a good kirtan leader. If he's behaving that way, then I should also demand respect too. We should be careful. And that humility is such a beneficial thing. Although Bhaktivinoda, in that quote that we read, he said, what is the benefit of false humility? At the same time, there is some benefit. And he speaks about that in Chaitanya Sikshamrita, that if you just bow down to a sadhu, and maybe you're not really humble, but you're bowing, the sadhu may bless you. He may appreciate it. If you're respectful to your parents, not because you're really humble, but just because you're told to do that, you may get some blessing from that. So if we go through our life, even externally being humble, it's beneficial. Whereas if we go through life with the idea that, well, I better demand respect, otherwise they're not going to know how to respect a senior devotee. They're not going to give me my position that I do. Then, phew, so many problems. Hey, whatever happened to this guy named Radha Jivan Gopal? You remember him?
He's still serving Guru Maharaj, so he doesn't come back until mid-June.
Acha. Wow, he's really fortunate. And
Yeah.
he just left you with all the cows and you went to go be with Maharaj, huh?
Yeah.
You're both
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you again. Thank you. We're blessed to get somebody like you as a mentor who's willing to, work so hard to fill our hearts with the nectarian water so that our plants can also grow in the heart. Thank you, Prabhu.
Guru Maharaj just told us, he said, if you can't quote Shastra, don't tell them you're my disciple. So I'm just trying to do something that would please him. But you don't know I'm said. We have 3 faces, 3 masks, we were just saying the other day in another class. We have one mask that we show to the outside world. We have another mask that we show to intimate friends. And then we have a 3rd face that we only show to ourselves. And that face, I have to say, is not a good face in my part.
Mm-hmm.
It's ugly. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Anil is here. Wow, I didn't even notice. Hare Krishna. Would you like to share anything?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, my everyone. Uh, um, Prabhuji, would you allow me, and I take permission from everyone, to pick up something uh, kind of uneasy and kind of controversial?
Sure. I'm going to turn off my camera for a minute, but I'm here, okay? Go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah, as we discussed, the respect for the ladies, the respect for the Matajis. It's been it's been 20 years. I joined. It was 2004, and now almost 24. So it's been 20 years, and I've never seen in our society, especially in our temple where I'm connected from, that someone misbehaving with the Matajis, particularly with the Matajis. Things happened, and that was nothing to do with the Matajis or Prabhujis. It happened among the Prabhujis, the disputes, the fight, the arguments, whatever happens, it happens because they are members in the societies, and it just happens, because of the guna guni shuvartante. Huh. It just happens. So, but what I have noticed in last around 5-7 years, that a lot of devotees are picking up these things, and what I can see that agenda is coming from the West, the women empowerment. It's everywhere throughout our scriptures that women should be respected. Yatra pujita nari ramante tatra devata. Huh? So wherever a lady is respected, the demigod resides there. Lord himself resides there. And it is our culture, and it is our society, it is our history. And Prabhupada gave this, and it is happening in our society. And I don't remember ever disrespecting a Mataji in our society. I may have fought a lot with my mother, that's my relation with her. But as a member of the societies, I have never disrespected a lady. I mean, I can like proudly and confidently say that. But the thing is happening that this agenda of women empowerment is becoming like a stronger, somehow or other is picking up speed, which I found to be not a very good thing for the society, because it will surely create a imbalance as it is creating in the other places where it is practices. On the one hand, Prabhupada is saying, I don't remember the this, but I will share whenever I get it. Prabhupada is saying in one of the purport of a shloka that the how long the marriage will stay, the more responsibility falls on the head of the lady. His writing is as it is. You remember that, I'm sure. So, and he's writing in the same words. He's writing very clearly, very vividly. I mean, very bluntly. He's writing that the man works for the whole day, and when he comes back from work and he demands sex, the wife has to supply, and she has to serve him. I'm not talking about this has to happen and this should be forced. What I am saying is this thing which few Prabhupada disciples and few senior devotees are forcing and thrusting in our society, this woman empowerment, it has nothing to do with the real substance. It is just a thing which is coming from the West because it's a hot thing in the West. It's a thing which has to be practiced. How far woman empowerment is going in the West. They just want to go naked. That on the name of the woman empowerment. They just want to go naked on the streets. So, and the other thing is that and some of them, and they are flipping the table 360 degree, that now they are saying that men bear the responsibility more than a woman. Okay, we talk about equal rights, sure, equal rights, we agree to that, but there's a lot of variants and lot of details about the equal rights. If it comes to equal rights, I can share a video where a lady slapped a boy on the street, and the boy was very smart. They were creating a video, just for the general purpose, for the education purpose. And he slapped her back and he said, "Sister, you mean equal rights? This is what equal right means." Uh, Again, I'm saying I'm just sharing this thing, and I have no reason to support or reject any part of it. I'm just sharing a thought which I have noticed in the last 10 years or more. So I mean, where the things are going, Prabhupada saying one thing, Shastra says one thing, and he's saying the same thing which Shastra says. But the devotees nowadays are supporting an agenda which is a outside thing in our society, and they are just they just forcing it like anything. And it will I'm sure it will create imbalance in long term. Yeah, I'm done.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Yeah, I know this culture that you come from. I know it somewhat, having lived for so long in India and things, and it's a fact what you're saying. It's a complicated issue. Srila Prabhupada spoke about this, as you're pointing out, in his books. But at the same time, Srila Prabhupada also allowed the ladies to live in the temples. He had ladies going out and doing book distribution, and he gave them positions sometimes and things. Not necessarily because he saw that's the best culture, but he saw, I would suggest that he saw this as the culture in the West. Now, why that's the culture in the West, that's another thing. I would suggest that it's not because of the ladies, but it's because of the men. Mm-hmm. That there's always Prakriti and Purush, there's always yin and yang, there's always male and female. And by nature, the feminine energy follows the male energy. Mm-hmm. It's just by nature. But when the men become very lusty, as they're doing in the West, then they want to tell the women that, they're equal rights. And we all have equal right to have sex. But it's not equal because the woman gets pregnant and the man doesn't. And then and then they tell the women that it's equal for everybody, and you take care of the child, or I take care of the child. It's really a bogus thing because they want to have sense gratification, and because the men are very weak. And so then the women become very confused, and the men want them to be strong. They want them to be tough. And there's all these movies now of women who are, expert fighters, and they have all this television things like that. But there's different cultures, and you've been to Vrindavan for Holi, to Braj. If you go to Barsana, you see that, what do they call it, Latti Holi or something?
Yeah, Latmar Holi it is called.
I'll explain that a little to the devotees. It's very shocking for some people from outside that the ladies take sticks and they beat the hell out of the men on that day. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that they have a superior position to the men, or that it's just that's the culture. But that's not the culture in Gujarat. That's not the culture in Orissa. In Manipur, the ladies sometimes, they're also very tough there. And sometimes they come together and they beat the hell out of young men who are drinking and smoking and harassing women, and they drag them to the streets. What I walk away with all these things, like you quoted that nice verse from Manu Sanghita, how when the women are respected, all the devas appear. I like that verse very much. I often quote that. We should respect women. We should respect everyone. But also, I've just seen that there's cultures are different in different places. You haven't had the misfortune of going to San Francisco. Right? I was there one year selling stickers and buttons at a gay parade. And I don't want to be crude and gross. To tell you the kind of things you see in San Francisco at that, you'll vomit. It's just so disgusting. And there's some women there who they have shaved heads sometimes, they have tattoos, their tongue is pierced. And if you go and tell them you should be a chaste woman, they'll break your nose. They're tough. But at the same time, they can't do that. But what they can do is they can become a pure devotee. Mm-hmm. Practice bhakti. And Srila Prabhupada saw that. But Prabhupada also, as you've been pointing out, and Neil, you're coming from a very cultured background, much more so than most of us here in this discussion today. This is the best culture. It's a nice culture. Devotees don't understand. They think that Mataji is like a bad word, and they want to call all the ladies Prabhu.
Point.
I tell them, Prabhu is okay, but Mataji means worshipable. Mataji, there's no higher term of respect than Mataji in Vedic culture. But it's very hard for Western devotees to understand that culture. And in one sense, I think Prabhupada saw that's not so important. Not to get hung up in all the culture things, but let's promote Sudha Bhakti. And then that culture things will come automatically. But at the same time, my strong feeling is Prabhupada wanted Varnashram. And Prabhupada wrote these things in his book, like you're mentioning, that divorce is usually the fault of the woman. Prabhupada said those things to preserve that culture. And we should be careful to preserve it. And well, sometimes in the West, it may be necessary for women to have some position in a different kind of way. Otherwise, people won't appreciate. I watch the Harinam program going on in New York City with Jai Gaur on a regular basis. And every day they have Mataji singing, pretty much every day, isn't it, Jai Gaur? Pretty much. And if you don't, in New York City, forget it. Nobody's going to listen to you. Nobody's going to appreciate you at all. And that's one side of it. But another side of it is it also empowers and encourages those ladies. So I thank you very much for voicing what you have. It's a really important thing. You've seen this culture. You've seen the respect and love that people have for Matajis, for mothers. And in the West, we don't understand that. And there's a whole competition between the men and the women. And you said sometimes women are pushing this equal rights thing. My humble thought is, though, it's because of the weak men. That if the men are really strong and they're Krishna conscious and they're not Yoshit Krita Mageshucha, as the Bhagavatam says, dancing dogs in the hands of a woman, if they're actually strong men, then the women will naturally follow them. And the women will put on clothes. Why do women wear skimpy clothes and go naked? Because they see the men like that. 20 years ago in India, in Orissa, it was a scandal if you saw a lady in a pantsuit, in a Punjabi suit. It was like a scandal. Now you see ladies in T-shirts and you see them. And if I go to Mumbai or Delhi, oh my God, it's like going to America. They're dressed in such a revealing kind of way. Why do they do that? Because the men like it. If the men didn't like it and didn't want to look at that, they wouldn't do that.
Yes,
Huh?
yes.
Once I was giving a class in east of Kailash, and I was saying how we should respect all the women as mothers. And afterwards, one brahmachari, very humble brahmachari, came to me and said, Prabhu, he said, please forgive me, but the Matajis, the ladies who are coming here to the temple, they're not dressed like my mother. And I've seen some of those ladies, it's like being in the West. And so then I asked him, what do you do? He said, well, I go to Konark Place every day and I distribute books. I said, okay, let's just imagine that one day you're at Konark Place with your book table and your mother comes and your mother is dressed in a bikini. What will you do? And this poor brahmachari, and he like his face became red. He didn't know what to, it was like something short-circuited in his brain. He couldn't imagine his mother dressed like that. And he was just confused. And then I told him, I said, I know what I would do. I wouldn't look at her. I would just ignore her. And so when when someone dresses like that, it means they want attention. And that's a kind of envy. But the Bhagavatam tells us that for Vaishnava, when we see envy, we practice upeksha, neglect. And we just don't, if the men are not impressed, if the men stop running after women like that, they'd stop dressing that way. If the men really wanted to find high-class women who dress in a very chaste way and behave in a chaste way, I can promise you the ladies would do that very quickly. Those are some of my thoughts on it. This is a controversial subject. I really appreciate you sharing your realizations and your experience, because you have this wonderful culture you're coming from.
I mean, it is falling apart. It's no longer the same it used to be. but
Yeah.
yes, still, the family system is there, and we can correct our sisters. It's not that bad that we cannot do that. Like even if I can say things to my mother if something inappropriate. For example, these leggings, when they came, my mother wanted, but I opposed. Don't do this, because this is not what I mean, like a right thing in the society right now. It was 10 years back, but now everyone is wearing the leggings. So my point is, just like you said, the woman dresses like that because man wants to see that, huh? But if you see the people who are the biggest supporter of the women rights, women empowerment, and if you go into their background, especially in the mainstream media and other politician kind of people, they are the biggest, I mean, the biggest and the biggest fornicators and womanizers, and they are everything bad about women. Yeah. And
They exploit women.
yeah, they are the biggest exploitators of the woman, and they are supporting, they are forcing this agenda of women empowerment. What I have understood by uh, by what I can say introspection and a deep thinking, what I have understood, that they are creating a culture where the women will be exploited even more freely than ever,
Mhm.
because you give them everything they need, not you give them everything they want. Gi- uh, yeah, there's a difference.
Mm.
You give them everything they want, and they will show you how you go to the forest, just like the Shastra says that man will go to the forest. You give them everything is what they want, because the demands have been increased because of these agendas. The more and more demands, more and more single mothers, more and more divorce over petty things. I've seen in my close
Mhm.
close relatives. The divorce are taken on the very petty issues, very petty issues. So the whole agenda is driven with a thought to exploit the woman more and more, and they don't understand it. They think that these men are supporting them, they are empowering the woman. But they are not empowering the woman. They are empowering a agenda, they are empowering a scenario where the woman exploitation will be a general thing. It won't be a crime, it won't be insult, it won't be a offense. It will just be a general thing to exploit a woman, and it will be facilitated by the authorities.
Yeah. Yeah. Now men, they just want to have free sex, and they say, well, if you get pregnant, then you have an abortion. It's not my problem. It's your problem. You take care of the child and things. It's exactly like that. I these things I you don't know so much as maybe as I do. In the West, these are very, very sensitive things.
Uh-huh.
And what you're saying is a fact, and this is the culture. And I hope that devotees, if somebody feels offended by what you're saying right now and they're listening in, please don't be offended. Please just try to understand what Anil's saying. Try to understand the culture that he's coming from. But it may not. I understand it's not your culture. Some people may be thinking that they're coming from the West. And for them, it may be very difficult. It may even be artificial. And we've seen sometimes men in our Western society who come to Krishna consciousness, they try to be a Vedic man, and they think a Vedic man means beating your wife or pushing her down, making her submissive forcibly. And that's not Vedic culture, as you well know. It's a culture of love and respect. They give the most respect to the ladies. But the men don't understand that, and the women don't understand either. And sometimes in the West, you have women who are more Krishna conscious than the men. Of course, you have that in India too. Sometimes you have women who are more expert than the men. Prabhupada wrote a letter to Saradiya and told her that you should give second initiation to your husband. You give him the Gayatri mantra and you do the fire yajna. I don't think Prabhupada ever wrote like that to any of his Indian lady disciples.
Yeah.
But he wrote that to Saradiya. She joined when she was like 15 years old in San Francisco. She has a Western nature. So Prabhupada saw that it was a little different sometimes for the ladies coming from the West. And even I've seen in some relationships that women may be more dominant than the men. And that's not ideal culture, but it just may be like that. And it's not that women are going to be able to all of a sudden change their nature and men are going to be able to change their nature so quickly. My suggestion is that we should respect this culture. Devotees should come and live in India sometime and see Anil's family, see how the people, what the culture's like there, and how it's not fanatical, and it's not harsh, and it's very loving and very respectful, and it's natural, it's beautiful. And try by understanding that to have that kind of culture, which is the best kind of culture. But in the meantime, devotees should just be Krishna conscious. However that they may do that. And some ladies, they may be very tough and they have a weak husband. Fine, maybe the lady works and the husband stays at home. That happens some in the West. But it's just a more natural thing in the West. Now we see a lot of ladies in the West. There's a movement of ladies who are against women's liberation, against that kind of equality, because they see that it's just exploitive. They see that there's no happiness, and they see that happiness is that I can take care of a child, that I can be myself, and I don't have to go out and work a nasty job with nasty people and be exploited all the time. There's a growing movement like that. There's a lot of devotees that way too. These things, though, I see as cultural things, which are secondary, not primary. The primary thing is bhakti, and these other things will come in their own way. I'm here in Hungary, and the ladies in Hungary, by nature, they're a lot more submissive than they are than America. There's some culture here, Gornitai Prabhu can say. But I've seen in India now, the way some of the ladies are in Mumbai and Delhi, they're worse than they are here in Hungary, or it's bad. It's really, really nasty thing. Anyway, this is another subject. I think we should finish with that now. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhuji, yes, absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Anil. I want to say, you don't know, but some people might become really upset with what you're saying. Please don't be. Go and spend some time in India, spend some time in the villages, and see what it's like there. It's such a wonderful, wonderful culture, and you're so blessed to grow up with that kind of culture, and I'd like to learn that from you, that culture. Thank you for sharing these things, Anil.
Just one more thing came to my mind. If I'll just take one more minute.
Sure.
I mean, just like you said, it's a culture. I want to add on something. It's not an Indian culture. It is the culture which was all pervading, which was in the roots of our society. No matter where you lived, it was the culture. Not in just India, in the present India, in the entire Bharatvarsha, which constitutes the entire land area, the whole of the earth. So some people might think that we are stressing an Indian thing, because first we came to know the Krishna consciousness, and it originates from India, the present India. And then another thing what we're stressing now is that's another Indian culture. This is not just Indian culture. This is the very culture, the very original culture. And the Prabhupada said one thing regarding the women's dressing, which not much people would know, because it's very rare to find that people listen to Srila Prabhupada. They might read the books, but they hardly listen to him. The conversations, the lectures, and the other talks with the different people. In one of his talk, he was saying that a lady from a high society, from a high family, when she go anywhere, she used to go into palanquin. And he gives the reason why it used to happen, that a chaste lady should not be even seen by the sun god. Yeah. Does it mean that they used to get a deficient in vitamin D? doesn't matter, because the culture, if you follow the dharma takes care of you. There's a verse called the dharma rakshita. You protect the religion and the religion will protect you. So this is my last verse, which I came to know from Prabhupada, the last sentence, that a chaste woman should not be even seen by sun god. That should be the standard of, you see.
And this is the culture Srila Prabhupada grew up with. It's a culture that Prabhupada appreciated. It's an interesting thing to me. Prabhupada, when he in the West, and I never ever saw him do this with Indian ladies, but some of his Western disciples like Jamuna and Vishaka and others, Malati, he addressed them as Prabhu in letters. And even there's one lecture where Prabhupada said that you should address all initiated devotees as Prabhu, whether they're ladies or men. And so some devotees are very strong about that and they want to push that. But then I tell them, look, I live in India for 30 years and I just can't do that. You can't, because Prabhu is a masculine thing. It's just strange. You just don't do that. But you call them Mataji, or maybe sometimes in Delhi you call them Didi. It's a term of respect. And I just try to in this way make a balance of things, because those ladies, they can't give that up. Srila Prabhupada said that, and we should mark that, and we should respect it. But at the same time, they should understand that there are, I don't know how many billion people there are in India, but for them, the word Prabhu is a masculine word. It's like offensive. It'd be like calling a lady sir or mister in America. It's just wrong.
Yeah, just go by the literal translation. Just go by the grammar, what Prabhu means.
Yeah.
And you know what it means.
So it's not reasonable to expect, although Prabhupada did some things a little differently sometimes in the West, it's not reasonable to expect that yourself or devotees coming from this culture are all of a sudden going to start calling all the ladies Prabhu or something. That's silly. It's a really silly thing. Okay. I want to stop there with this now. Let's see. Gorni Thakur, do you want to share some things? I saw you wrote some comments here also. It's also getting late for you. Gorni Thakur was in Mayapur. Neil's in Delhi.
Yeah, my first question was that I'm thinking that we can follow this advancement in the Shikshashtakam verses, like when we have no taste for the name, that's understandable that we are not really qualified. But then the third verse is explaining that yes, if you become humble, if you really become tolerant, and if you respect others and not take respect for yourself, that's okay, then you can chant. But how it's possible that then after that, I think that after that stage, somehow some kind of inclination for fame, name is coming back or coming up, I don't know. So can you say that how this...
Well, first of all, if we go properly, and we think that Durdaivam Idusami Hajamina Anuraga, I have no raga, I have no attachment for this because of my offenses. That's our foundation. Before we go on to text 3 or 4, we have that foundation that I'm a fallen person. And then we start chanting without offenses. And Bhaktivinoda says that there's 4 symptoms of niraparad bhajan. Tanadapi sanichina tarori vasihishna amanina manardena. Those are 4 symptoms of niraparad bhajan. And what happens if we chant in that way, giving all respect to everyone else and not demanding respect for myself? Bhaktivinoda, by the way, wrote a commentary on that song, on that verse. He wrote a commentary on Shikshashtika, but he also wrote song commentaries. And his commentary on the Tanadapi Sanichina verse is Guru Dev Kripa Bindu Diya. And in there he says that Deho Nata Jata Jata, that may I give respect according to someone's position. So that's a very, very important point. I should respect everyone, but it's not that I give the same respect to a new bhakta that I do to my Guru Dev, and vice versa. That would be an offense. Deho nata jata jata. I have to learn the art of respect. This is a culture. This is a culture of respect. It's like Anil Prabhu. He's grown up in that culture. They respect the women so much. Recently, there was some 16-year-old girl in Delhi, you may have seen in the news, who was raped and killed or something, and people are so upset about it. And there is, sadly, in India today, there's a lot of abuse of women, but there's this natural tradition where they just love and respect women. And that respect is deho nata jata jata. It's a natural kind of respect. You'll respect your grandmother even more. You'll respect your sister. I remember taking an auto rickshaw from Alarnath to Jagannath Puri once. And the rickshaw, while as he was driving, suddenly he went past. There was a young girl about 15, 16 years old walking beside the road. She was not trying to stop the rickshaw. She was just walking. The rickshawala immediately stopped for her. And she got in. I think maybe he knew her from the village or something. But his whole purpose is to protect her and give respect. Because those young ladies of those kanyas, they're very, we should give respect to them because of their chastity, their purity. So this is a culture of respect. And that the basis of it is too, that Durdaiva Midri Samihajani Nanaraga, that I'm such a rascal. I don't have any taste for anything. And then I can give respect to others when I have that kind of mood. And if I'm genuinely like that, then my humility is real. It's not just a show of humility. As Bhaktivinoda was saying, sometimes we offer some humility and then everybody thinks, wow, Madhavananda is such an advanced devotee because he's so humble. And I'm thinking inside myself, yeah, that's right, man. Like I got some appreciation from everybody. And sometimes we do that maybe in a very subtle way, just because we want love. We want to be appreciated by others. And we think that if I'm just very, very humble with everybody, and it may be a show, then everybody appreciates me. Isn't it? Is that helpful, Gwani Prabhu? You always post in great quotes. Let me see here. I want to go back up to your previous question. You just posted this other one. In Chaitanya Sikshamrita, there's a consensus that amongst all civilizations, the Aryans were the most progressive. The people of Bharat were the most advanced in knowledge, intelligence, and social organization. One should not lose respect for the Aryan civilization just because with age it has become weak and dependent. If one carefully reads the Dharma Shastra, he can understand how much the Aryan civilization of Bharat achieved in implementation of social rules. Thoughtful men must accept that when it was guided by genuine sages, achieved the highest state of social regulation in the world. Wow. Prabhuji, that's the quote of the day. That's perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, we have to respect this culture. But at the same time, I'm not going to, if I'm in Amsterdam, Amsterdam's another crazy place with all kinds of transvestite people and drugs and all kinds of crazy things, and homosexuals and lesbians. It's not going to help that the first thing that I tell them is that you should give up your homosexuality, whatever. You should just accept a wife or husband in a natural way. That's not the first. The first thing is practice bhakti. And then all these other things can come later. But as devotees studying Shastra, we should understand what is the best culture. And this is the best culture. And we should strive to get there. It's going to take some time. We're seeing it now in Hungary. The devotees, Shil Shiva Ramaraj wants to establish some Vanashram here. And a good job is being done, but it's still a long, long ways because we've grown up with this particular nature and this particular culture in the West. And it's going to take some generations to really properly do it. But then we have to go in that direction. That's
May I say something more?
Yeah, please.
Here I met with Bhakti Raghava Maharaj, and he have a genuine project for developing Varnashram.
Yeah, I visited his place and had talks a lot with him too, personal talks.
Yeah, and more and more I am associating with him, more I understand how important to teach this this culture from a genuine way. And for that, we have to have really wise sages to teach it, not just someone who learns the books or have some opinion about that, but really deep, realized persons have to teach. Brahmanas have to teach, Kshatriyas have to teach, Vaishyas and Shudras, and have to teach women how to accept their position and the best way to connect to others. So I see his genuine project he have, very good, very good.
Yeah, it's a little difficult, as I said, though, too, because in Manipur you have one kind of Vanashram. In Vrindavan you have a different. In Gujarat you have a different. In Orissa you have a different one, and it can be very, very different. And the ladies are not, they're very strong in Manipur. They're not independent. They're also very chaste, and they have these good qualities. When we talk about teaching Varnashram Dharma, I think one of the reasons why Srila Prabhupada wanted, he said sometimes all the devotees should go to India every year for at least a month. And other times he said devotees should come to India and spend a year or more, and they should learn the language. Because I can give a seminar and talk about Vedic culture and talk about women's roles and things like that. And many devotees do that, and that's nice. But you're not going to learn culture by attending a seminar for 1 hour or 1 week or something. It requires going and living with people. It requires understanding the subtle nuances of things. We have certain rules that we want to follow, and in the West we just think it's just an absolute rule, maybe in the Shastra. But we see in the villages and the cultures, they understand the subtle nuances of things, when it can be applied, when it shouldn't be applied, what is the essence of things. We need to live with people like that. If we really want to understand the culture, is Neil still here? I think he's gone now. Oh, he's still here. You need to learn the language, because there's so much subtlety there in Hindi and Bengali and Odia, and what to speak in Sanskrit. The word Sanskriti means culture. Also, there's so much culture in the language, and you can't. It's just like if I want to understand Hungarian culture. I'm living here. I have a Hungarian wife. I eat some of the food. I've been to Debrecen and Eger, and I've seen the forts and some old things. But I can't really understand unless I learn Hungarian language. And then I should learn to read Hungarian poetry. And I've heard some really awesome Hungarian poetry from my wife, and some translations and things. You can't really understand the culture until you understand the language. So it's a work in progress. And there are a lot of devotees who appreciate what Bhaktivedanta Purna Maharaj is doing, what he was doing, what Bhakti Raghava Maharaj is doing, what some others are doing with the Varnashram. It's a really important thing. At the same time, I don't like these culture wars that are going on all over the world. Why fight about things? If you want to be an independent woman, that's your problem. You go ahead and do that. But there's another culture. Just you should respect Anil. That's my point. Please respect Anil, and Anil, I hope you respect the ladies in the West, in Boston or Amsterdam or something, who are practicing Krishna consciousness, that they can't really come to this kind of cultural standard. And there can be some discussion, some gentle discussion. But when people come and try to insist that it should all be like this, and you guys are wrong, and you guys are bad, that kind of anger just doesn't solve problems. Anyway, we're getting off on a whole tangent here. This wasn't our main subject today. But thank you, Gorni Taipabu. I really appreciate that. And let's see here. Who else is here? Leela Purushottam Prabhu, do you want to share anything?
Hare Krishna, my pranams. I hope the wind is not disturbing the sound too much.
Not right now.
It's quite windy here. I'm trying to have it in a cap, so probably it could work. Yeah, I always love you actually to hear the katha on this topic, on being careful about pratishta and pride in devotional service, because definitely needs to hear this topic again and again. on the beginning, I was really happy that you connected it with Mana Shiksha, with Raghunath Das Goswami, because I have it somehow very close connected. Although Mana Shiksha has such great dynamics, you know. So I also sympathize with Gornitai Prabhu being always looking maybe too high. But still, with Mana Shiksha, for me, those like, you know, the guiding verses in the beginning, like how to avoid these dangers, they were always the highlights for me of the Mana Shiksha. So I was really happy to have that topic so closely connected with Raghunath Das Goswami's Mana Shiksha. That was the first thing. Then I was really happy about you mentioning the Prabodhananda Saraswati statement, because it's really a nostalgia for me, because I might remind you, you probably not remember, but that was the first thing I've ever heard from you when we met physically for the first time. It was Kartik 2007 at the Krishna Balaram Mandir. And I was just walking there from, you know, I even made few mistakes. I asked few devotees, "Are you Madhavananda Prabhu?" I had such a desire to thank you for that time. Actually, I was so much impressed with your seminar, Culture of Respect, and I just wanted to thank you for Katamrita and Culture of Respect. And we sat down together on the benches there on the like, what is the parikram path around the mandir. And you've been telling me that story. You're sometimes telling it still till today on the classes. Remember that like beggar devotee from Vrindavan, who was attending the classes of the high class speaker. And then the speaker figured out when he met him at the Gopishwar Mandir, he asked him, "Who are you actually?" And he told him like he's really Paka, he has a Paka Brahmin origin and he studied university. And then he admitted to him, like he told him, he was like very surprised, the speaker. And he told him like, "Why are you living like this? What's wrong?" And his answer was, if I wouldn't live like this, I couldn't see Krishna. I couldn't meet with Krishna. I couldn't speak with Krishna. And he was really taken aback, the speaker, the Bhagavat speaker. And connected with it, you exactly mentioned this quote from Prabodhananda Saraswati, that's our supreme goal, our supreme desire, to die peacefully somewhere in the lost corner of Vraja, unknown by anyone. And I remember it created such a strong samskara. I remember it till today. So it was great nostalgia for me to hearing that quote today. Thank you for that. And also, I really loved now what you mentioned about the humility to Siddha Hari Prabhu in your reflection on Siddha Hari Prabhu's reflection, because that was something that I was taught by my Guru Maharaj very strongly, that the proper humility is not to not accept the praise and honor, but to accept it in a proper way, in a proper understanding where the credit is due. Meaning like, okay, I might have cooked nice feast, I might have given a good class, but it's not my credit. The credit goes to my teachers, my guides, my preceptors. So that was also something that I really was happy to hear. Yeah. And I remember that Guru Maharaj many times when I was like like exhibiting this rather false humility. Oh, no, nothing, Guru Maharaj, nothing. He said, no, you have to learn. And he was warning me. It's much more difficult, actually. It's much more challenging to learn that art of being able to accept it properly, not from the platform of pratishta or false pride, whatever, but with the humility, with proper understanding where the credit properly goes. So these were my highlights today.
You reminded me of something else. The first time I met your Guru Maharaj was in Vrindavan, and he was coming to my Culture of Respect seminar.
That was exactly the seminar that I was listening to. And based on that, actually, there is one more story to that, actually, that I had a period quite on the beginning of my Krishna consciousness that I was so much, I would say, even absorbed in teachings of Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj. That was practically the only one whom I listened to, read from. And that's actually I got to that seminar, and then to you, that you're publishing the books and you're publishing the Kathamrita. But the first one was the Gaur Govinda Maharaj. But time to time I faced like challenges by my elder devotees around me, who were like stating like, oh, this Gaur Govinda Maharaj, he didn't preach in the line of Srila Prabhupada, and he said things different. And I was, at the time, I was really sad and confused. So one time I went to Guru Maharaj and I asked him about Gaur Govinda Maharaj. And the first sentence that Guru Maharaj told me, Gaur Govinda Maharaj was Rasik Vaishnav, and most of us couldn't even appreciate it. We were just not being able to appreciate his greatness. So that might have historically caused some disturbances. And then we spoke more and more, and he was telling me that probably many of his disciples don't represent him nicely. And then he mentioned, but if someone represents him properly, then it's Madhavananda. So.
Guru Maharaj is a very kind person. All right. So I think that's enough of that. Jai Gaur Prabhu, do you want to share anything?
Sure, Prabhu. That was some very sweet remembrances from the Purushottam Prabhu. But I had a couple of comments. One was just quickly about the like women's empowerment and all that kind of stuff. We were discussing that here in New York a little bit, and one devotee was making a point that like it's part of the demoniac influence of people, because they understand that they can kind of separate and exploit people easier. They introduce stuff like that. Like one devotee was saying, like, traditionally there was one income per household, but if you separate things like that, then 50% of the population starts working again. You have 2 taxable incomes instead of 1, and it's just like all this kind of the demons are very, very smart when it comes to this kind of stuff. I was thinking about that, and I feel hypersensitive because we're in New York, a very liberal place. So sometimes I need to make sure that things are being represented nicely on the Harinam. Like sometimes there's an umbrella we hold, when there's too much sun, and when the sun goes behind a building or something, we can put it down. Sometimes it's like I'll look around and maybe a lady is holding the umbrella, a Vaishnavi, but then there's just men on the mat. And I'm just thinking, oh man, I hope the New Yorkers, they're not gonna yell, misogynistic monks, like making the women hold things like that. But
these culture war issues are so sensitive now, such a big thing for so many people. And the problem is that we just get distracted. And then you can't talk about bhakti and you can't talk about Krishna because somebody's angry. Why is a woman holding the umbrella and all the men standing in the shade, sitting in the shade? This is nonsense. You guys are misogynistic and whatever. And you get into some stupid discussion like that. It's I was appreciating as I watched. I know Ram Roy is a real staunch brahmachari. It's a real staunch brahmachari ashram there. But every day there's Mataji singing.
He respects anyone who can help him, push forward the yogya. He's very grateful for that. And then another thing more on topic, I was thinking, I really like the verse you shared about, just accepting whatever comes on its own and looking for the good qualities in everyone. And I was thinking about how sadhus would go on Madhukari, and you talked about this before. And I had an interesting experience yesterday. I went to like the pharmacy to go and buy some athletic tape because we use the tape for the fingers so that you don't cut yourself when you're playing mridanga a lot. And so I went, and there was this like sweet older, I think she was maybe a Muslim lady, like a black Muslim lady. And she saw me looking at the tape and she said, if that's OTC, I'll buy it for you. Go grab a few of them. OTC is like some kind of New York, like, benefits program, so she was able to buy it. So she bought that tape for me for the Harinam, and I was just like, I was thinking about saying no and just saying, oh, I can, I've got a little money on me, but I had this experience that like when you kind of accept, like when you're accepting what comes on its own, or kind of like in this kind of mood of begging, that like there's this natural meekness that you feel when you're seeing that other people are wanting to provide these things for you and you accept it. I just felt like it's really conducive to your spiritual life. Just kind of it was a very palpable thing, like I experienced. It was very instructive.
There's also a principle that if someone offers something with a love and affection, then you can't refuse it. I mean, of course, it depends on what they're offering and the circumstances and things, but in general, you can't refuse that. My Guru Maharaj wouldn't let anybody wash his clothes or help him in any way. He was cooking for himself and everything. And then after some time, he got there's some operation he had on his foot, and then he couldn't function very well. And he accepted service from the devotees then. And I had personal experience with him that I would go to him sometimes. I went to him once, it came to my mind. I said, Guru Maharaj, we want you to accept some service. And I know you don't want this for yourself, but as your disciples, the devotees are worried about you, and they feel this love and concern. So, he accepted it. He accepted a bodyguard because Okay, we'll go ahead and stop there. Krishna Cohen wrote a couple of things privately to me. I was trying to get her to ask her if she wants to say something in public. Do you want to voice something, or should I just read what you wrote, Krishna Cohen? She wrote, she just liked all the other nartas come from this pratishta. I so much appreciate the emphasis and attempts to avoid this. Thank you for teaching us the importance of this. And she wrote, Sada Chinta Govinda Charn. Oh, and she also wrote the position of grass is a very safe position. And who can avoid fights is a real victor. Right? That's an important point. All right, so it's nice to see everybody. We ain't going to be here next week because we're going to be in Ukraine. And I don't worry about things there unless Mr. Putin decides to start bombing the trees and grass in the Carpathian Mountains. It's not a very high target place where we're going to be at in Western Ukraine. But we won't be able to speak this next Wednesday or this next Sunday. I don't think we'll have Prabhupada on either day. So thank you all so much. Hey, Sada Hari Prabhu, I figured out a way to get text messages, and I've already tried it, and it's working from America. So I'm on my way.
Oh, wow. Maybe we should meet and then get going.
Yeah, it's going on. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samabeda Bhakta Binda ki, Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bo, Vanchakalpa Vibhascha, Kripa Sindhu Bheva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo.